Hey, everybody, I'm Dave Graber.
And I'm Kelsey Anderson.
Welcome to another edition of Buffalo Brief. We are going to get to a really fun second segment because we're going to talk a lot about last night's game down at KeyBank that Kelsey was attending. You were in attendance there last night, right?
Yeah, so was our desk manager, Russ, and he showed up on the Jumbotron.
Nice. All right,
Yeah,
great. We're going to get
picture of
into all of that in our second half of today's episode when digital sports reporter Jonah Bronstein stops by the pod to break down all things Sabres and high school sports, too. We're getting into hockey and basketball postseasons. But first, we want to talk about a story I think that is certainly near and dear to my heart as a father, as a parent with two children, one a freshman in college, the other as a sophomore in high school. A lot of issues come up about the importance of youth mental health. I feel like for me, that's top of mind. For Kelsey and I, kind of mental health in general has always been sort of top of mind. But really, when we're talking about youth, I feel like that comes up a lot, especially in today's kind of normal conversations.
I feel like young people have so much pressure right now.
That's a good point.
There's social media that is out there, the texting that goes on just throughout the day.
Right.
There is AI that's now being introduced and, typing everything into a ChatGPT type AI system of how do I respond to my friend so it can be perfect. We just didn't have any of that. I also grew up in the middle of nowhere in North Boston. So I was just outside playing all the time with my
Climbing
siblings.
trees.
I didn't have any of that. Right. So I feel for these young people, and we're going to bring someone in who is at the forefront with this issue and who also just got recognized by the state for the incredible work that he is doing. So let's bring in Lakeshore High School counselor Steve Brown. Hello, Steve, first of all.
How are you?
You were just selected.
To be here.
Nice to be here. Yeah, thank you for joining us. You were selected by Governor Kathy Hochul as a member of an inaugural cohort of the New York State Master Counselor Program. This is a 4-year program. Only 27 counselors were chosen across the state. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
That's
It's
huge.
It's a great honor to be part of this cohort. I've just started the work with it, and basically what it is that we are working collaboratively across New York State with other master counselors, and we get top-notch professional development. So we are learning stuff that we can bring back to our school districts, share with other school districts. The topics range from mental health to behavioral systems to college and career planning to things that other districts are doing that I might not know. And I'm able to then bring that back to our district and our counselors, mentor them in professional practice that is built with results.
Great.
So these colleagues are all across New York State, from the North Country in New York State down to New York City to Long Island, and to have this opportunity is such an honor. And I'm so excited to be a part of this cohort in working with these counselors in New York State to recognize the role of school counselors in a district and how that has changed progressively over the last 40 years from what it used to be to what it is currently today.
Without question. I mean, so how long have you been a counselor? How have you been in this industry?
I've been at Lakeshore since 1999,
1999.
and I have seen a lot of changes.
So let's talk
in
about those changes.
Yes.
Quarter century.
Yes. Oh, gosh. Now you really put it in.
Right?
I don't know if that's good or bad. Okay. When you first started, really your role was to traditional, I guess, guidance counselor. So you were doing course selection and talking to kids about college. There was a trend in the early 2000s where there was this philosophy that everyone had to go to college.
Yeah.
That misserved a huge population of students. And so what we saw was that trend did not work because we were forgetting about the skilled trades pathways.
Right.
And those are very wonderful career pathways, lucrative for a lot of students, a lot of hands-on learning. So you started seeing more of a trend with regard to career and college change in the 2010s back to more comprehensive. But during that time, academics became a high point of concern, as well as student engagement and mental health started coming. I just read a recent book called The Anxious Generation that looked at the data of what has happened over the last 30 years. So it's sort of interesting, that book. I can tell you a little bit about it. What's really sort of, when I grew up, if you went to a playground, there were no safeguards. So there was a metal slide.
Yes.
Right.
And there was no safeguards around the playground. So the idea of risk-taking for young people, society changed that. If you look at a school playground now, no one's supposed to get hurt.
Right.
And so this has been going on for a while, this change of protecting. And students need risk-taking because risk-taking allows them to make mistakes, learn from them, and then understand what you did. You know, when I grew up riding a bike, if you broke your arm, you went to a neighbor's house.
Yeah.
Now, you know, riding a bike is riding an e-bike. So things have changed culturally that has affected our students. So it's been a very interesting change. So that book is a bestseller. A lot of educators have read it, Anxious Generation. It really looked at a lot of mental health issues related to our students. And then that really started coming up when COVID hit. And we are still dealing with the effects of COVID. I know COVID, it's 2026, but they have said it's going to take us 10 years to get back on track in education.
It
not a
affected
surprise.
my kids both,
Yeah.
without question.
This is super niche, but I went to Ellicott Elementary, which I know Steve knows about because he grew up in the Orchard Park School District as well. Our playground was the best playground in town in Western New York. It was this huge wooden playground, but there were bees all over the place. There were constant hurting
Splinters.
yourself in splinters in the wood. The metal slides were all over the place. It was great, but yes, constantly hurting yourself on this playground. So that's so interesting when you bring that up.
Overprotection.
Yeah, overprotection. So let's talk about how parents kind of play a role in this, and maybe, you know, as parents grow, like I know I'm a millennial and we are the ones kind of having the children now, and children are growing up, and a lot of my friends deal with anxiety themselves. So is that maybe parents pushing that on their children as well as we grow up as a society and we get our better playgrounds and all our better technology and all of that stuff? Is it also millennials also pushing kind of in angst on their children that are kind of becoming like helicopter parents more than you've seen before as well?
Yes, I 100% agree with that. There is value in failing, and there's also value in young people learning from that. And so I think what has happened from my perspective looking back is that with the overindulgence of social media and the overindulgence of communication, I think parents are on guard a lot, more so than ever before, and they're not as trusting of others. So that is one thing I have seen. The other thing I've seen is that, you know, if you go to a Little League baseball game,
I know what you're going to say.
you're
I
going to
already know.
see the babysitting service of the phone or the iPad happening.
Yep.
And that's being done. And that is detrimental to our students because there is studies that say that we are affecting their brain waves. So attention spans are decreasing. So school isn't always fun, and that's okay. There has to be a boring part of school. I know people are going to be like, it should be fun, but not everything is fun. So a teacher sort of has to, I guess, adjust to the students, but also because sometimes their mental capacities have changed, they can't stay on task as long because they don't know how to self-delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're seeing. And so from that is behavior problems in schools.
Yeah.
So students may lash out or they get frustrated, and that disrupts the whole learning process. But we're all part of this. But when a student comes to a school day, the teachers only have them for 6 hours a day. So what happens at home and what happens on the weekends is brought into school as well. So we are managing a lot of different columns of situations that affect learning in the classroom.
Yeah.
So in teaching, how do you delay your gratification for success? I mean, I'll give you one example. When young people apply to college now, they think they should know within 24 hours. That is not
Wow.
how it works.
Right.
And they get anxious that they haven't heard from the school within a week. So they're not used to that delayed gratification that has been built into our society, how I grew up,
Right.
or how you guys grew up, that there's going to be a delay.
I just want to add one thing to that. I have a friend who's a teacher who said, the first maybe 15 minutes of her class period, that was 40 minutes, there would be maybe one kid on his phone. This is before the phones were banned from the schools. As the period went on, the last 10 minutes of the period, she would tell me every single kid was on their phone. Every single kid, the best student in the class, and all across the board. And I'm like, how do you deal with that every day? And she said they just can't sit for 40 minutes because they're so used to being on a phone and an iPad, that instant gratification that they get at home. They're so used to that throughout their lives now. And it shocked me.
I mean, I could not imagine 40 minutes and they have to like reach for the phone. Probably less time for that, I imagine, like every 5 minutes. Although we have to do it too.
As adults, though, we do it as
We have
well.
to do it.
I am
Right.
addicted to
Yeah.
my phone. I realize that about
Right.
myself.
Although we also have to work on our phone. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of work that we have
There's
to
a
do. on our
tremendous amount of work and there's a
Anyway.
tremendous amount of nonsense that
that's
happens
true.
on my
A lot of
phone. Yeah,
nonsense.
scrolling.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Very true.
Steve, you said before, largely when you first started, this was about guidance and guidance counseling. So you were guiding kids to the next level of their education. As you said before, maybe misappropriate. The sort of society was pushing kids more towards college and not the trades enough. I'm curious how that evolved, because what I think you were going to say, or perhaps the other side of that, and while your job used to be about guiding students, now it's perhaps more about attending to some of their acute mental health issues that have developed as a result of all the things we've already talked about. So I'm curious from your experience, without divulging individual stories, because of course you're not going to be able to do that, but could you give us some examples of some things that where you used to be able to have a student or maybe a few students come in and say, let's talk about your next classes for next year, or let's talk about where you're going to go to college, or what you're going to do. Now it's like, I'm having an attack of anxiety or depression or something like that, where your job has changed. That's what I'm hearing you said before, right?
Yeah, 100% it's changed. I mean,
yeah.
you really don't know what's coming in your day each day. You can plan what you want. So there's a lot of hats we wear.
Yeah.
It can be, I'm at the high school, so the issues get a lot bigger
Yeah.
as they get older, okay? And so, for example, just other students' behaviors in the classroom can upset a student.
Yep.
So then I am counseling them on how to navigate that because they can't leave the situation. They have to learn how to manage that classroom the next day. So a lot of anxiety counseling, a lot of I can't get up in the morning to go to school. When attendance is low, it affects grades, but then there's a huge correlation between attendance and behavior because when you're not learning, then other things, or you avoid the class. So you're trying to solve something that you're somewhat putting Band-Aids on, and you're trying to also encourage them that this is temporary, and that's very hard for young people.
Yeah.
They don't look at time how adults do.
Right.
So they look at time day to day. I look at time months to months, and that's a very different way to look at time. And as you get older, you don't look at time day to day. So there's those incidences. There's family dynamic issues that you cannot change.
Right.
but you see a lot of hope in them, and they have resilience. So some of them have more resilience than students that maybe have those other supports outside of school. And I find that very rewarding because I love to see them grow and change, and then they take off to where they're going.
Right.
So sometimes what they're going through is, in a roundabout way, can benefit them later on if they can get through it.
Sure.
Yeah.
With
And
your
then,
help. Thank you.
right? And then you have other individuals that maybe have a lot of support, and then when roadblocks come, they don't know how to deal with it because they haven't experienced that stress because everything's been a smooth road. And then, so that's what we're dealing with, So, a student going from number 3 in the class to number 7, because of their grades, how does that student deal with that change, And for some students, that's life-threatening to them. But
And 10
for
years
us, that's a situation, but you're still who you are as a person,
Yeah.
and you're still going here, and you're still doing this.
But then that was something you weren't faced with. What,
No,
even,
we
10,
weren't.
15 years ago?
No, I mean, it really changed. It started
so
before
interesting.
COVID, but after COVID, COVID really shot up the more of the isolation of students. So part of that was, we all know that this virtual learning is never going to work. Right. So I know people are like worried about AI, but parents want social interaction for their kids. They don't want them sitting at home on the computer. So I know AI can be used in the classroom for different things, but I do not foresee, and if this society completely changes, I'm completely wrong, us ever replacing teachers with AI.
No way.
We need them to go to school. We need them in a structured environment. We did that experiment with COVID, and it failed.
Failed miserably.
And we're not going back to that. So, and I think that how I see AI used with students is maybe to improve their writing skills or math skills.
Sure.
But it's not the end all because AI is not perfect, so they still have to do the work. But the isolation of kids, so we're still in that. So my 9th graders who I have so they would have been in 4th grade. So for 2 years, there wasn't any conflict.
Right.
So people get sort of frustrated there's conflict in schools, but conflict is good because it teaches kids
How to work through things.
Yeah.
correct. And when you don't
Problem
have
solving.
conflict in schools, then we're not being human beings because conflict's always going to be a part of life, right?
So, we've talked for about 18 minutes now, and if what I've heard is correct, adversity can be good for a child. And if you are a parent out there who is a parent who wants to make your child's life perfect, first of all, perfect doesn't exist. If you want to make your child's life as close to perfect as you can, maybe that's not the best way to go about it. And I'm not here to tell anyone how to parent because I'm not a parent, but this is what Steve is telling us is potentially good for your child. Let them go through some things. Let them figure that stuff out. Let them go play on the splinter prone, hot
Searing
slide.
metal
The old playgrounds at Chestnut Ridge
once
Park
in a
that
while.
aren't all
at
fancy.
Chestnut Ridge, and see how they figure that out themselves.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we got it. The guardrails can't be up all the time for individuals to grow, and we need to let them, struggle a little bit, but overcome that. There's so much value. We've always said failure is the best way to learn from, right?
Yep.
So success equals success, but everyone that is successful has had failures along the way. And so it's how you respond to that failure is what we're trying to teach them. And so, and the thing is that I always tell students this one little story about Tim Hortons. I'm not plugging Tim Hortons. Okay. But I always say, like, because sometimes they get frustrated that they have to do things a certain way. And I said, well, if you got a job at Tim Hortons, they're going to tell you need to make the coffee this way. And if you start making the coffee the wrong way, you're not going to work there. That's just their philosophy. I go, they sell lots of coffee. So there are going to be things that you're going to have to adjust to and work with. And then they're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Now I understand. But see, those little things help them understand like what they're headed towards, you know? So I just think, you know, kids are great. I mean, they're very creative. They're much more creative than I was. I just had a student yesterday showed me they had their own YouTube channel for filmmaking in 9th grade.
What?
And has made like all these films with another 9th grade student.
That's incredible.
I
that
am
is
like, I went on their YouTube channel and I'm like, this is so great. And they both want to go to filmmaking school. And we've already talked about Ithaca College. So
Nice.
that's in 9th grade.
Kelsey's
Roll
Ithaca grad.
Bombers, baby.
So, I mean, I just think like once you get to know them, they have a lot of things to offer,
Yeah.
but they also have a lot of noise out there
Yeah.
and they get confused a lot because if you ever looked at a college website now, there's about 1,000 majors and how do you decide?
Yeah.
Right. Very true.
So it gets a little bit overwhelming for them.
Well, Lakeshore is extremely lucky to have you. These kids are extremely lucky to have access to you and your abilities because clearly you're doing the job and you're doing it well enough that you're being recognized at the state level. So again, congratulations.
Thank you so much for
And
your
thanks
time.
for joining us today, Steve. This
Yes.
is an important conversation. And I
Yes.
have a feeling that it's not the end of this conversation either.
That's great.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much, Steve.
All right. Thank you
Appreciate it,
so
Steve.
much.
All right, we'll be right back with Jonah on sports. Welcome back. Another sold-out crowd at KeyBank Center last night for the Sabres game. It was the welcome home for Tage Thompson, and after he won gold medal in the Olympics, and there was another win for the Sabres last night, Jonah.
Yeah, it was a golden occasion. Tage Thompson scores the winning goal, the golden goal for the blue and gold to beat the Golden Knights. Jack Eichel, who even got a bit of a cheer in that pregame introduction, then booed every time he touched the puck during the
Every
game.
time he touched the puck, there was a boo.
But it was an energetic, festive, exciting atmosphere in the arena, sellout crowd celebrating Tage Thompson, and then the Sabres rose to the occasion with another win, which going back several years now, they've had a knack for that when they were honoring someone pregame or putting a former player in the Hall of Fame or something special about the occasion. The Sabres have usually been able to pull out the win and send the fans home happy when they came in to celebrate something before they puck drop.
I think it was Darlene who had said to the radio broadcast during one of the breaks that he had never seen the arena like that ever after they honored Tage and brought those guys on the ice. And he just said the atmosphere was something he's never seen, which made me actually a little sad because in the, 05, 06, that era, it was bumping down there. So it makes me sad that those guys haven't seen an atmosphere like that, but they could be very close to seeing an atmosphere like that when we make the playoffs.
Right, yeah. But there were a lot of people in the building that have seen the building like that. Ryan Miller came back from winning the silver medal in 2010. It was maybe an even more raucous celebration for him because it was right after those Olympics. But yeah, this group, this Sabres team hasn't experienced this. It's newer for the Sabres players than it is for some of the Sabres fans. And the Sabres coach, Lindy Ruff, was behind the bench for some of those memorable seasons 15, 20 years ago. And it's building and building. The Sabres keep on winning. They keep on rising in the standings. They keep increasing the almost certainty now that they're going to be in the playoffs and more so playing for playoff seeding. And can they make a run in the playoffs? And it's really a fun time to be a Sabres fan and I guess to be a Sabres player too.
Without question. I think the mentality now, a lot of people are treading a little bit lightly with the approach of the trade deadline, thinking you don't want to mess up a good thing. Why do we want to screw up with whatever chemistry has been working perfectly for the last couple of months? But the Sabres should be buyers this time around, and people think that they are going to make a move, right? What do you think?
I think the Sabres definitely are shoppers
Yeah.
in terms of trying to be buyers, trying to add to the lineup. There were some strong rumors and reports this week that they were going after Robert Thomas, the top center out of the St. Louis Blues, but the latest on that seems to be that the Sabres aren't willing to give up what the Blues are going to want in that deal. And I think the Sabres are going to find that for a lot of the top end, most exciting, especially forwards that they could get. And yeah, I don't think the Sabres want to trade anybody that's helped them win 25 of the past 32 games and rise to one of the top 5 records in the entire NHL right now. But they're going to have to give up something to get something in return. The Sabres probably prefer to give up prospects or future draft picks, and they might be able to get some useful pieces for that. But the top players, then they might have to part with somebody who's playing a key role right now, and I don't think you really want to mess with that.
Right.
I don't think the coaching staff wants to give up guys that they've become reliant on, and I'm not sure this team really wants to give up guys that they're winning with. So we'll see what gets done. Jarmo Kekalainen is known for making big trades, so I do think something will happen. But we'll see how monumental the deal is coming to the deadline at 3 p.m. Friday.
Nice.
Where are the Sabres in the standings now?
The Sabres are second place in the Atlantic Division, only 2 points behind the Tampa Bay Lightning, though they've played more games.
Right.
So not quite one win away from being in first place. Tampa Bay is a team they play at home on Sunday. They just won there last week. So there's an opportunity if the Sabres keep on winning. They've won 4 in a row, maybe win another 4 in a row. They could take over that division lead. They don't have a lot of separation, but they've gained 2 points of separation from Detroit. 3 points, I believe, on Montreal for that 3rd or 4th spot in the Atlantic Division. So pulling closer to, nothing's clinched, it's very tight, but closer to being a team that's potentially opening the playoffs at home and having home ice advantage in that first round and more favorable seating in the playoffs than, when they started this run 2 months ago, was can they even get to that 8th spot wild card and sneak in? I think they're 8 points above the cut line of sneaking in. So they're at a point where they could clinch their playoff spot with a week or 2 left in the season.
That would be huge.
Yeah, it would.
All right, so we transition to high school sports because we got a lot on the horizon. Some upsets that happened going into this week. We've got finals for just basketball, girls and boys, or is it also hockey as well in the finals? Or are they done?
Well, so basketball is at the sectional finals,
Right.
Championship game stage, starting here Wednesday night.
Buff
It's gonna
State, right?
be girls finals at Buffalo State in Class AA, Class A and A1 and A2. And then the boys are going to be playing in Class B at Fredonia.
Got it.
And all through the week, there's going to be, the highest classes at Buffalo State, the Bs at Fredonia, the Cs and the Ds down at Jamestown Community College. And that starts here Wednesday night, goes through Saturday and Sunday with some of the crossover games into regional playoffs next week. Hockey has had their championship games.
Got it, okay.
We got some coverage of that on WIVB.com on who won those over the weekend, both in the public school league and the Niagara Cup for the Catholic schools. That was, a pretty monumental day for Canisius on Monday. They won the hockey championship, and then hours later they won the basketball championship. The hockey players walked into the basketball gym with their hockey trophy and got
That's
a big cheer
fantastic.
from their student fans and a sold-out crowd. They beat St. Joe's, their rival, in both of those games. And then so those teams, the Canisius hockey team in boys hockey and the boys hockey players from Clarence and Orchard Park are going to be playing in state playoff games at Harbor Center this weekend.
Nice.
Wow, and Harbor Center, what an opportunity for
fantastic.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the basketball team, Canisius basketball team, gets to play their state Catholic championship game at Erie Community College, Bert Flickinger Center on Sunday. The hockey plays a lot of state playoffs in Buffalo because of the facilities at Harbor Center, but basketball, that's kind of rare. That doesn't happen every year. It doesn't happen very often at all. So a potential for Canisius to win their state championship game in front of some home fans on Sunday at ECC. Could be another big day for Canisius. Hockey on Saturday, actually not the same day, but hockey on Saturday, basketball on Sunday.
Go Canisius.
It'd be great.
And I'm saying that really loud because our producer, who will listen to this later, went to St. Francis.
He's a franny guy.
All right, anything else to talk about in the world of high school sports? And I know you've outlined a lot of this on WIVB.com.
Yes.
Yeah, that's mainly what's going on in the high school sports. You can go to WIVB.com and see kind of a breakdown of the brackets and the schedules and the scores as they get updated and the individual stories on each of these championship games that we'll be covering every night here now,
Great.
going through to the weekend. And then in the colleges, Damon University is hosting their conference championships this weekend in men's and women's basketball. We'll move along to the NCAA tournament the following week. Damon men are going to be hosting the NCAA Division II tournament. basketball teams at Division I level moving along to their conference tournaments, the ones that are going to make it, which isn't all of them locally next week. So there's a lot going on there.
All right, Jonah, thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Jonah.
joining us. We will see you tomorrow.